Welcome back to the official Atari Games podcast. This is Jason here, and I'm joined by a bunch of people. This is going to be a rather unusual one because we actually have a cameraman here, but I'll get to that in a second. First of all, we are joined by James Anderson, Chief Visionary Officer slash founder slash dentist at Alan-1. James, welcome to
Jason,
the podcast. How you doing?
thanks for having us on. It really is nice to see you.
Yeah, this is great. And also joining me, you'll see him in that hard hat over there, is Brad Howard, CEO of Alan-1. Hi, Brad. Welcome. Great. And on the camera, you can do a little flip around if you want while you introduce yourself, is JK, COO of Alan-1. Literally flip that thing around. There you go. Just like that. Perfect. Wave hello. How you doing? Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's... Well, look, before we're going to get into it pretty quickly here, but just a little bit of housekeeping. I don't think I've said this up front in a while, but hey, you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. We'd appreciate a subscription. You can subscribe on all podcast services, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. You could also leave us a review. Those are also very well appreciated and help the algorithm. And if you've done all that, hey, go the extra mile. Tell your friends. Be like, hey, I listened to a pretty cool podcast. Cool to me, at least. And you should check it out because then we'll have something to talk about. Also, Lunar Lander, it's out. It's still out. Came out about a couple weeks ago, and people seem to like it. And if you haven't checked it out, please do so. And if you're a little hesitant, waiting, maybe you want to wait for a sale or something, go and wish list it. Please. It would be great. Much appreciated. And also, coming soon, Neosprint. We'd also appreciate a wish list on that as well. All those links will be in the description below. Now, gentlemen, usually I start with a warm-up question, but look, we are in the factory. JK is holding his phone up. He's holding this camera up. His arm's going to get tired. We need to talk about this thing that Brad is standing next to. But first,
staying steady.
I want a little bit of background, okay? We're here talking about Alan-1. We're talking about Asteroids Recharge, the coin-op version. I wrote arcade edition here, I guess, but it's the coin-op arcade edition of Asteroids Recharge. But how did we get here? How did we get here? James, I'm sure you could take this away.
That is a great question.
How did we get here?
It's been a 6-year journey that started out starting an arcade called Flynn's Retrocade in Roy, Utah in 2017. I think it was 17, maybe 16. Nolan Bushnell is from Utah. His high school is the same high school my kids went to. We grew up in Utah. We're from Utah. We had this connection. We loved Atari when we were kids and still do. And we built an arcade and brought all these Atari games back. And we've been in business doing well since 2017. But the games would break from time to time. My favorite game is Star Wars by Atari. The cockpit, the yoke would always break. And we realized we needed to find a way to keep the vector monitors going, to keep the hardware functioning. And so we built a company called Alan-1 to do just that, to make repro parts to keep games running so that people weren't trashing their beautiful vector monitors and turning them into LCD screens. We wanted to find a way for a new generation to experience what we did when we were kids. So one thing led to another. After that adventure, we decided to make our own gaming studio. We made a game called Avian Nights. It's doing really well. We made a company called Major League Esports. We had an esport event and gave away $17,000 in prizes back in January. We just have a lot of momentum, and we loved our partners, David Page at Atari with the Atari.
I was going to say, what do you want to say to David Page? Just say something to him. Say something. There you go.
Hey, Dave, thanks for your friendship and for the introductions. It's been a wonderful journey, and we hope to see a lot of success with the BCS for years to come. We're grateful for all the guys that came out. Most of our players that joined us were all part of the BCS community. But we realized that there needed to be a renaissance. We wanted to create something. There's something about classic arcade gameplay that has been lost. But when we saw new kids come in, a whole new generation of players, mostly their dads in their 40s and their kids that are 5, 6, 7, or 8, when they played Asteroids for the first time or Centipede for the first time, they're having a lot of fun. It's not the same thing as playing it on your iPhone, right? We all know that. And so we knew that we had something. There's a new generation of people that want to experience this, and we felt like it was time to partner with Atari and put Atari games, new games, back in arcades.
That's awesome. Really cool stuff. Hey, JK, you could bring us in. Let's bring us in. Let's see some of this gameplay here. Because you can start playing. Let's see a little bit about this. But before we get really into before we get into the real nitty gritty, what was the appeal of Recharge and bringing that back to arcades? Because what's funny is that there's an irony to this, right? Like I was the producer on the Recharge series at Atari from the beginning. It was me, it was Adam Nickerson, and we built the big thing that I wanted to do and he wanted to do with that series was to bring the games up to stuff for the platforms for modern platforms. So make them appeal to the platforms because no matter how good the classics are, how much fondness you have, they're not built for the hardware that we play today. So you could play them emulated, you could play them, but it just doesn't feel it doesn't truly represent that experience on modern hardware and controllers and screens. So that was the whole purpose of the Recharge game was how do you get that to feel that? How do you build these games for those systems while keeping the arcade roots without drastically changing them? I always say like have them play like you remember them, not how they literally were. So what was the appeal of taking what we effectively designed for, modern home consoles and being like, let's put them back in the arcades. That's what we really want to do.
That's a great question. Well, when we designed Avian Nights, we were inspired by classic gameplay, and we built something called the Alan-1 800. It's a custom board that connects just like a classic arcade game system would connect from the 80s using a JAMA-like connector. And all these features. This was actually designed by a former Atari engineer. His name is John Grigsby, a good friend of ours, and we met him at a show, and he was such a great friend and player. That over the last couple of years, we built this, and while we were making the game, we realized there's an opportunity for us to tap into what Atari did, but not just nostalgia and re-release games that were made 30 years ago, but to tap into what you did and actually update the Recharge series in a way to make them more playable on an arcade cabinet, including modifying it so the games are ideally an arcade operator wants a game to last for 3 minutes. Like that's the secret that Nolan Bushnell always said. So we've designed the games to make them harder a little bit. You've given us the freedom, Jason, to make changes together as a partnership. We can modify the game. So this is not the same Atari Asteroids Recharge that you can buy on a console. There are minor changes, and we can talk more about that in a minute. But to answer your question, we just felt like it was time that an Atari branded cabinet with the Atari logo and the Atari name come back into arcades. There are bar arcades everywhere now around the country. There are new pinball machines are selling like never before, and we felt like it was time to create something to bring back the fans that loved Atari back in the day with a whole new genre of games that were familiar yet new. That answer your question, Jace?
Yeah, I think so. So wait, you kind of hinted at this already, but what are you could answer both these at the same time, but like what were the biggest challenges in adapting a game that was built for premium release? We got all your quarters. We got all we got all 40 quarters. I think I did my math right from you already up front if you buy the games today, or you can. But you're designing that around that arcade experience, right? So what were the biggest challenges in adapting the game? And like you said, we gave you a lot of rope on that. And what are the biggest and in there, like what are the biggest differences that people can expect, or at least things you have in the works?
That's a great question. So we'll pull back some of that secret sauce, and we'll and when it gets released, there's iterations. So what I'm about to say may or may not end up in the final version. Of course,
true. Everything's work in progress. Everything's work in progress. You're not looking at the final thing, to be clear.
Yeah. So the first thing is we realized there needed to be some type of force feedback. Like we needed something that felt like what an arcade cabinet would do, for instance. And that's what this board is designed to do. We included what you're hearing. The sound is turned off, but you're hearing explosions going on while Brad is playing the game. Go ahead, hit hyperspace, Brad. Hear it again. So
yeah, I was wondering what that was. Okay, there we go.
That's a pinball knocker.
Show us.
Like that. Brad, go show it. Go show it in action.
There we go. Let's see it in action.
So that's at the bottom of Cubert back in the day when you played Cubert and your little guy dropped off the bottom and it landed at the bottom of the cabinet. Gottlieb put a pinball knocker to emulate that the little Cubert guy was at the bottom of the cabinet, right? The
Okay.
only arcade cabinet to ever do that. We were big virtual pinball fans, and we realized there were so many cool things happening with a virtual pinball setup. Why don't we add virtual pinball effects into arcade games? And so
Hmm.
we have not only pinball knockers, but we also have large shaker motors like the kind you see and Stern pinball machines. When certain things happen, you get into multiplayer and multi-ball. We've
Yeah,
got
let's show us all the guts. Let's get all up in there. That's why we're doing this, cameraman
now
style.
the final version will have a cover for safety and all that, but this is what a shaker motor looks like. And at certain triggers of the game, it'll vibrate to make the cabinet feel like it's alive, just like how a pinball machine works. And then
Oh,
fans,
cool.
we have fans that blow on your hand. Show those, James, right there. And so up, and then go show where the game is on the front. So when right now we have it so that when you thrust and you're thrusting hard, it'll blow out of those vents and blow on your hand. You'll know
Oh,
that
cool.
something's happening. So while you're playing the game, you're feeling the game. You're feeling feedback. Now that's critical for an experience that is different than what you find on a console. Yeah, the little shaker, the little thing will shake, but it won't do what this will do. It won't give you this kind of force feedback and interaction and blow air on your face while you're playing the game. We also
Yeah,
wanted to have the LED screens and all the lights of the cabinet, be triggered with different in-game events. So we designed a custom library with APIs that trigger when certain events happen. And so while you advance into different waves, Brad, those LED lights will change and we'll flicker some more and we'll do some more iterations on what that looks like. But it's all connected so that the game code itself will allow the cabinet to actually interact with the players. That was number
that's
one.
awesome. Yeah,
Now that's done here, through our IOP, our custom board. And
sweet.
yeah, there it is.
This is sorry to cut you off. Get to that in a second. I think that what you're describing is so important, right? Because the best, it was funny. My warm up question was going to be, what are your favorite arcade experiences, right? Like, what's your favorite arcade game, really? And the best arcade games, like I grew up in the '90s, right? So I was born in '88, so it was well after the Atari. I mean, all of the Atari stuff was in its zeitgeist, right? So the arcades I grew up in were very different than the ones when Atari was at its prime, right?
Right.
So they needed to bring it because you were getting at the point once the N64 and Dreamcast, like the moment Dreamcast came out, and you could have like the actual Sega games that you had in the arcade, like Crazy Taxi. I could just play Crazy Taxi, right? All the fighting games like Virtua Fighter came out on all these other consoles. So when the console visuals, because usually you would go to arcades and you would find the best performing games, right? You would have
Right.
experiences that you couldn't have at home. And then once the technology at home met or surpassed what was in the arcades for the price, right? Then all of a sudden you need to do something else, right? Something else was the gimmick, assuming you didn't care about tickets, which I did not, right?
Right.
So that's why like the thing that stands out to me most is like Time Crisis. Time Crisis was like the best the best arcade game because it was an experience that I absolutely could not have at home. Even if you had like the PlayStation version where you had to calibrate the gun with the TV, it was never quite the same. And now it's even more of a novelty because it just won't work on HD TVs, right?
Right.
So there's workarounds, etc. But it's just not the same, right?
Y-
So what you're doing, it does such a good job of answering that question because, yeah, this is a level of immersion with this game that you can't have at home without like substantial modification, right?
Right.
So you're giving people a reason to go to this destination, so to speak, to play this game and to like kind of complement that experience they have at home as opposed to like instead of. It's like it's very cool. It's cool stuff.
That coupled with we have something embedded inside the game, and it's not ready to be shown yet, but we have
Tease.
something called Major League Esports that connects an account on your phone with the actual gaming experience, so that when you log in and play the game, you just scan a QR code and it knows who you are,
Oh,
and
awesome.
you earn points every time you compete in a daily high score tournament that's automated, and it's per location. So if I'm a bar arcade operator or a family fun center, and I have an Asteroids or any other game that we release, an Avian Nights or whatever, but all of our recharge titles, we'll talk about our future in a minute, but with Atari and the partnership and what we've agreed to do together. But every day there's an automated daily tournament, and if you win the highest, if you get the highest score that day, you earn league points for that day. And then every month, there's an automated tournament for every cabinet in every location, if you can track with me. And the operators don't have to manually set it up. It's automatically done based on when they install the game and they fill out their details. There's a monthly and a daily tournament that happens in real time for any player that uses the Major League Esports app to play the game. Now, the beauty of this, and they also can set up special tournaments on weekends and whatever they want. And there's a lot of those that happen like on St. Patrick's Day and Labor Day and Memorial Day. There'll be special tournaments that we engineer that are pushed to all the arcade operators that own a machine in the country and in the world. Now, the beauty of this is that every time you play and get a high score in that tournament, you earn league points. Just like how soccer teams, when they compete, they get points. Even if it's a tie, they earn points, even for a tie. And the top players make the playoffs based on league points. So our system is designed the same, and in conjunction with Atari and all of our various folks, is we will hold an annual tournament every year. And it'll switch locations around the country as time goes on. But right now it's in our headquarters here in Roy and here in Tooele, Utah, where players will be invited to come and play and compete, those that have the highest league points around the country. Now, that's not embedded inside of the recharge titles that you buy on the console. You have to go to an arcade to experience that and to play it. So not only are you immersed and there's interaction here, and you get to feel things and hear things and feel things, but you also are competing at a level that you can't compete when you're playing on the console.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right?
And
Isn't
it's
that
like
cool?
this, yeah, and it's this kind of ubiquitous experience, right? Because
Right.
the consoles, we don't have cross-platform leaderboards, but here it's just like all one thing. So
All
yeah,
one thing.
it's very
And
cool stuff.
your cell phone actually tells you if someone beat your high score for that day, you'll get
Oh,
a push notification. Hey, so and so beat you down at Roy's Arcade. You better go back before the day is over to beat them back, right? We just want to encourage people to come back to arcades and experience what that is, and in a way that makes sense for them, and they want to do it because it's part of the competitive social interaction you feel at an arcade.
yeah. So I'm also seeing, like, we haven't addressed this, but this is a pretty, I mean, one of the biggest additions to this game that you're doing is there's a third player option.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that was hard for us to do, but our talented team of engineers, led by Ahmad, did a fantastic job. In about 48 hours, he was able to look at your wonderful code that you gave us access to, and modify it to break the scores out so they weren't all unified like it is today on the console version. If you play two players, there's one common score. In an arcade, that doesn't work because you have individual players that come up at different times and they need their own score and they compete against each other. That's part of the fun of going on a date and seeing, or hanging out with some buddies and seeing who's the best at playing the game together.
Mhm.
So once we did that, it was easy for us to add a third player. Now, could we have added a fourth? Yes, our technology is good enough to do that. We didn't have enough space in the design we did, and we also felt like it didn't test very well. And we need to talk about testing these various game options to see if it works, because 4 just had too many players on the screen. So yes, we have 3 players now, and the scores are all unique. Players can come and go, and every time you die and start over again, your score resets. So there isn't any continuation that allows you to just add up your score and keep winning and buy your score. We don't do that. We want it to be a real game, but we also want people to be able to jump in at any time and interact and play and have fun.
Yeah. He's playing like kamikaze style. It's a unique strategy.
There are some other changes, Jason. Like for instance, and we mentioned this on a pre-call workup. Like of course, we have a high score board now and a track screen, but we also felt like in the spirit of making the game more difficult and challenging, we made it a little bit different than the console version. When Brad shoots a power up, you'll see this is an example of the kind of changes you're allowing us to do to make it a unique experience that you can't buy. If you notice that one of the secrets to Asteroids is stay in the middle the best you can as long as you can. If you stay in the middle, it's much easier.
Well, hang on a second. Was that a secret, or was that just how people played because moving around was so cumbersome and difficult?
That's how yeah, people just figured that out. Like if I
So
could
it
stay
was
in the
it was a strategy because the other way was way too challenging.
way
That
too
was like
so,
when creating this original game, like the original Recharge version was that we wanted it to feel like people could move around and be more agile so that you had the ability without feeling like you're driving a tank. Now you might say, "Hey man, that's not Asteroids." And so what I will say is, well, it is now.
it is. It is now. I agree with you. You want to move around, and so what we did is we modified. We took upon what was there and what was so good, and we modified it a little bit so that and it tests very very well in the arcade. So that when you hit a power up, the power up will not come to you. Like you have to go get it, which is a unique little a game tweak, but it creates an interesting game choice. Should I leave my little safe haven where I'm having a great time going left and right, back and forth, and go get that power up so I can be stronger? And I may die in the process, like what you're seeing Brad do, or do I leave? Or do I leave the power up because if the power up gets hit by an asteroid, then the power up explodes. Now that simple change made our games when we were testing and timing, it made them a lot shorter, which is what you need to do in an arcade environment. You got to make the games harder. And that's exactly what it does. So those kind of tweaks, Jason, thanks for letting us have the artistic freedom to try to make it feel like an arcade 3-minute experience where you have to put another quarter in to play again.
Of course. Yeah, and the idea is like you want to heighten that kind of risk reward system,
Yeah,
right? I think that
indeed.
makes sense. And it's been almost, oh my God, I don't even want to think about how long. I mean, 2.5 years. I think this came out in 2021 is when when we launched Asteroids Recharged. So yeah, it's been a while. I mean, things have been learned. Nothing's ever perfect, and like I said, you want to. I don't know if I mentioned on this or if I mentioned the call before, but the key is you always want to design for the hardware that you're making it. And if
Right.
you are controlling the loop on that hardware and software, then that's critical that you have that liberty because the arcade stuff more than any of us do. So yeah, of course, it's great. And you still got the railgun, which is still fantastic.
Oh
Love the
yeah.
railgun. Do you have any sort of is there any force field? One of the most satisfying things, I mean, in every recharge game there's a railgun and everything. Even in Quantum where you can't shoot, things can still use railguns to shoot you. So but in this, do you have it always like felt so satisfying to use a railgun. Like the moment we got an Centipede recharge, that's like one of the coolest upgrades to get. So is there any special feedback that you get when you fire the railgun?
That's when the small shaker motors and the large shaker motor, they all fire off at the exact
Oh,
same time. So it feels really, really good. We probably won't be able to demo it, but it feels really, really good.
nod.
And you know that thing, if you ever played a pinball machine and you've got into multi-ball and that big shaker motor is telling you that something special is happening, that's what's going on.
That's awesome.
And we have the freedom in our board. We can add so many more channels too as we iterate on the game. We could add 10 shaker motors if we feel like we needed to, and the board would be able to support it. We also could make cockpit versions of Asteroids or Yar's Revenge or Missile Command. I'm not announcing anything that we would be doing. I'm just saying we all know what recharge games are out there, and if when we make our next games, we could do full immersive with lights flashing, and because we have up to 64 channels at one time for LED lights, 18 channels of medium up to 12 volt, and then 6 channels up to 24-volt action going on, virtual pinball stuff. All tested, all working. We can do so many fun things as we design our games to truly be an interactive experience.
Yeah, this is really cool. Oh man, I was just gonna ask. Yeah, it's cool stuff. And what about the? Oh, right. So you actually gave a good view of the side panel and all around. Are you? So here's a question. Here's a question for you guys. Are you familiar where this, like, how we started doing the key art for? for the Recharge games.
I know I've met Tom, and I've met one of your wonderful people that did a lot of the artwork, but I don't know the backstory. Tell us more.
Okay, so basically, when the first Recharge game was Missile Command Recharged for mobile, right? So we did that. And one of the ideas that I had this crazy idea, I was like, what I want to do is I want to put in augmented reality mode in this game where you can project a virtual arcade cabinet and then play the game on the virtual arcade cabinet in augmented reality.
Awesome.
And we did that in March 2020 when the game came out, and I'm sure, and it was the most important news story that came out in March 2020. There was nothing else of significance that happened during the month of March in 2020.
Yeah, right. Except
everybody was just talking about how cool it was that we could play Missile Command on an augmented reality arcade cabinet. So the idea was, hey, let's get key art created to wrap this augmented reality arcade cabinet. I think you know where I'm going with this. So all of the key art for every Recharge game was done by a woman named Maria, who worked with Sneaky Box at the time, and even post Sneaky Box, she still did the work. She did the work for Berserk and Quantum, etc. She's amazing work, and it all started to create this original arcade cabinet that did not exist. And now we've come full circle to the point where that key art, which was originally started to be created for this fake arcade cabinet, is actually brought to life on a real arcade cabinet. Wow. So it's very, very fun how that works out.
What a great story. And this is most likely that this is a prototype version that we put together for the show, and that's probably going to change the asteroids in the bottom. And there's some extra pieces we had to make, and our art team took Maria's work and was inspired by that. And we're working closely with Tom and the team over at Atari, and to ensure that it's absolutely in line with the vision. So there are a few little changes we have to make before we go to production, and we're in the process of getting those all finalized. But that's the vision. We want to make it feel like Atari. It needs to look like Atari. It is Atari. And we're gonna be. The goal will be that we will release our 2-player cabinet version of. I'll make the announcement here, July 28th at the California Extreme show, and we've been asked to speak. I know, Jason, you and I chatted earlier about someone from Atari joining me. We hope it's you. And that'll be when the two-player cabinet will be for sale. We'll be producing at least 25 cabinets a week coming off the factory line. We'll have a number of cabinets ready to sell. I know Atari is going to be doing some pre-sales in July, and all that's to be announced later. But July 28th is when we'll go live, and the 3-player version will go live September 1st. All of that was announced in the press release in Q3. That all fits into Q3. And then we're already working on our next game. Our next game will be announced in Q4, and we're super excited about releasing at least 4 games a year after that.
We got to be careful here. I don't want to get in trouble with Cassandra. She's gonna Cassandra's gonna come for me. She knows.
No, she won't.
She knows where I work. Shout out to Cassandra, by the way, Cassandra Brown, who's our head of licensing, who I've been trying to get on this podcast for months now, and just keeps dodging me. So this is my way of publicly shaming her into joining.
No, Cassandra introduced us. Jason. She's like,
yeah, I know. I know. I can still publicly shame her for this because she hasn't showed up yet.
He was like, you got to get on Jason's podcast. We got to talk about Recharged. And I'm so grateful for Cassandra. I met her in Las Vegas. This is how the deal happened. We became friends. She worked closely with Brad for a little while, and we're glad to be partners for years to come. We're looking forward for this renaissance, and I can't wait to see what other cool stuff we can make together, Jason.
So you showed this off in March, I believe, for the first time, right?
Yep.
And it's been 2 months since then, at least, and you still got a little bit more time to go. What did you learn from the first hands-on of people playing it during that March event? And because I imagine it was very different from where you're at now, or maybe it wasn't. You guys just worked that fast.
Well, no, there's a lot of changes, and we're still iterating. And yes, it was. We had the show, and let me just say this, and I can mention this. Eugene Jarvis came by and played the game. Eugene Jarvis, if you don't remember, he's the one that made Defender. He designed Defender for Williams back in the day. He also made Robotron, and he's the CEO of Raw Thrills. He came by and played the game for about 45 minutes.
Oh
with
man.
me. He was like, "This is one heck of a game." I won't tell you what words he used, but he was like, "This is amazing, and we're gonna love
Thank
it."
you.
Yeah,
You're saving editing time if you don't use profanity. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and he said, and we had fun. I think he beat me. I beat him. We went back and forth. He said, "This is amazing. Do you need any investors? Do you need any help manufacturing? Here's my card." Like I just said, "Thank you, Eugene. You've been an inspiration to us. We hope that we can continue on with the industry and help operators, help arcades and bar arcades become more successful, and family fun centers experience what this is like. We don't just need driving games and shooting games at arcades. We need fun games." And there were other folks that I probably can't mention that also came by and said, "We're very interested. We want to put this in our theme parks. We want to put this in all of our establishments and that serve food and have arcade games." And you know who these people are, but I won't mention their names. And it's just exciting. There's lots of great future for Atari and for Alan-1, and together we're going to make a lot of fun.
So I got a couple more questions here. I know it sounds like we're going into wrap up mode, but I want to
No, I'm
know.
not in wrap up
I
mode.
want to know when it is available. How can people find where these cabinets are? Because I remember, like, what was it, when Killer Queen came out and it was in arcades? It was only in like a handful of arcades. I was like, how do I find out where this thing even is if I want to play it? So when it is released and it starts making its way into it, is that something that you could do through that app or through your website? How would people find out where to play the game?
Yeah, the Major League Esports app actually shows you when you load it up. It'll tell you who has the closest whatever arcade Atari game that we have. Asteroids Recharged, of course, will be first, but so that's a given. The app will show it, but not everybody has the app. We'll also link in, of course, our website will have it, and we hope that Atari will do it too. Together, there'll be something, Jason. Well, we'll figure it out,
Okay.
where Atari fans will be able to find where Asteroids Recharged is available on location. As we roll out the Recharge series, there'll be a community of fans who want to go play and coin up.
Cool. Now I got to ask this question. I started asking it last podcast, and I want to start doing it more often. Which is, what's your favorite part of the job, and why would you? And like I ask everybody else, why are you doing this instead of dentistry?
Well, that's a great question. Brad, Brad could show you the hard hat. On the top of it has our motto.
Let's see it, Brad.
And it's crystal clear. This is why we do it. I don't zoom in a little bit more, Brad. Don't look at
Just
the
get right up
Don't
in
be
his
shy,
face.
buddy.
There you go.
There it
building
is.
fun. We
Yeah.
want to add on the top, having fun, building fun, but making people smile, having people experience like joy and make memories together in a location, not just at home, not just through the internet. Nothing wrong with that, but seeing actually people come to an arcade that we own and new kids experience this for the first time and tell their dad and compete against their mom or their dad how much fun they're having and the smiles on their faces that it generates. We believe strongly that we can create, non-bloody, non-violent games that are family friendly, almost like the I probably can't say the name, but family friendly entertainment that to barcades that make people happy. Our purpose at Alan-1 is to deliver peace of mind. I'm sorry, that's our purpose in another one of my ventures. Our purpose at Alan-1 is to deliver happiness, make people have fun. Just like when I was as a dentist, I made people smile. We hope that as we build arcade experiences like Asteroids Recharge with Atari, that we bring a lot of smiles to a lot of kids' faces. I know that sounds cheesy, Jason, but it's the truth.
No, it's all right. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I was also wondering, like, specifically, like, what part of the process do you find the most enjoyment? Is it that ending part where you get to actually see people play in that experience, or is there something in the creation of the hardware or the software, or things coming together?
I think I'm a creative guy. I'm left-handed. I like to build things, and so helping like even iterate on minor software changes to what you have is very enjoyable for all of us. And then seeing it happen in a timely manner, and then testing it, and actually seeing fans at arcades enjoy what we're doing is very, very, very enjoyable. But the artwork is part of the magic. What makes this so different than a console is what you alluded to earlier. We're not just making something that people can play. We're making something people can touch, and we're making something beautiful with art that is original and unique. One of the things that we negotiated with Cassandra that we'll do for all the Atari Recharge games is make custom comic books with artwork and stories and backstories. And so we actually have an Asteroids Recharge comic book, all finished. We're going to give it to you and Cassandra for approval, but with beautiful artwork and a beautiful story that arcade operators can then use this as they have ticket redemption and other things, because that's part of the story, where they can have an Asteroids Recharge comic book there as part of their ticket redemption story. And the whole experience of putting the artwork together and creating a story and making something beautiful is probably, I think, my most favorite part of the whole thing. So
That's awesome.
we're looking forward to making more beautiful artwork, beautiful cabinets, unique designs that people can play and experience and interact, to bring them into a new place in an immersive environment that they've never been to before.
Very cool. Hey, Brad, as the CEO, what is the most outlandish thing you had to veto from James as when he takes his chief visionary officer title on?
Holy cow, that's a great question.
There's been a few of them. Brad, go ahead, tell him.
James is like, no, go do it.
Go ahead, Brad, tell him. I promise, it's safe.
It's good.
Safe space for now.
Safe space. Man, you know, it's been a while since I've had to veto something. Because we've got pretty good synergy. Because there's not very much vetoing that happens here. Jimmy, It starts out as a very outlandish idea, but as the team, we bring it back down to where reality and dreams meet, and that's where we build some really cool things here.
That was beautiful, Brad. I'm tearing up over here.
You got a new slogan there, right there.
There it is. Yeah, we got to record that right there. Yeah.
But
man, so there's nothing that you wanted to do, or is like, man, or maybe it's like more of a future thing. You're like, man, I would love to do this crazy outlandish thing in a game. And James, you could jump in on that too, or anybody really. I'm curious to know, like, because you have so much cool stuff in this thing, and again, I think about like I think arcade machines also, you want to keep surprising people, right? And there's a lot of surprises hidden in this thing that even people who have already been playing the at home game for 2+ years, they're going to come here and they're going to do it, and they're going to experience things that they haven't even after playing it for 2 years. So the question is like, what it's like kind of a wild idea you have, if you're willing to share it.
That's a great one. So one of the things that's important to do for an arcade game, and Atari did this very, very well all the time, is when you put a quarter in, if you're a good player, like you're playing Tempest or Millipede or Star Wars Cockpit, for instance, or Return of the Jedi, you could pick your wave level, either beginner, advanced, or expert. And when you pick those different wave levels, you got an extra bonus after you completed the first wave. Well, we're incorporating that into the game, but we're also incorporating galaxies. So this was something, and Jason, you may shoot it down, but once we show you what it looks like, we hope you approve. So,
okay.
So we felt like part of the experience has to be that after you're done saving the Milky Way, you got to go to the next galaxy, use the hyperspace, the whole thing rocks and rumbles, and you go to the next galaxy, and there's asteroids everywhere that are blowing up, and you got to go save that galaxy too. So we've identified 43 real galaxies that have real names. And we know as you go from galaxy to galaxy to galaxy, eventually you can save the whole universe. And you've all done it with your Asteroids Recharged from a bar arcade near you.
You guys, you're listening to this and you might be like, this is staged. There's no way this is the first time Jason has heard this idea.
That is the first time you've heard it.
And the answer is yes, this is the first time I've heard this idea. Don't hate it, because the other thing is, like, the biggest difference, especially when we made the jump from the mobile version of Missile Command to the console version of Centipede, is that, we had to justify the cost, right? Like, we wanted to get to that higher price point of like $10 because we wanted to make it feel like people were getting a larger scoped game. And part of that, as a personal preference, I like a game that has an ending. So one of the biggest things we added to those games was the challenge mode, where we have like at least 30 challenges, actually 40 challenges in the game now. And that's like your campaign. And that's why you get like these crazy different scenarios that are unique to that, so you could actually get to the ending. You have something to complete, right? And you could do that in co-op or single player. But for in arcade game, you really just want to get in, you have your experience, and then it's basically a linear experience. Sometimes there's choice, but it's very minimal. You're not jumping into a campaign as something to complete because you're always going to start from the beginning, right? So I don't necessarily hate the idea, especially since you're probably not going to have challenge mode in the arcade game or anything like that, and you might want to give people a break if they're going for because you're probably not going to have a pause button. So
no pause
this goes back to the whole point of building the game around the the hardware, the scenario, the rules, the expectations, what that is. So yeah, I don't. Let's see where it goes.
Let's play it. Let's see how it plays.
Let's see how it goes.
So Jason, just like a movie director, some things will be on the cutting room floor when you're done. Yeah. But you want to experiment, you want to iterate, you want to test it. And so we've taken some of those challenges that work and we've added those as the boss modes at the end of the galaxy. So we're putting some of those in before you go to the next galaxy that all makes sense as part of this comic book story that allows you to have a different experience than you can at home, to justify putting $4 or $5 of quarters in every time you go visit the arcade rather than $9 or $10 to buy the whole thing. So
it's very cool. All this stuff sounds very cool. I'm not again, all of this stuff is work in progress, but I think it sounds pretty cool. I dig it. I'm looking forward to playing it. I love the idea of being able to, because we have local barcades in the city. I actually, when I play hockey in New York, and every time I walk by this bowling alley and I look inside and I see arcade cabinets, I'm like, man, how cool would it be to look into that arcade cabinet and look into that arcade they have through the glass and see a new Atari game there. So that would be awesome. Yeah. So the whole endeavor really, really excites me. I think it's awesome. And, special shout out to David Page, who made that connection, and to Cassandra, who's really at the forefront on the licensing side.
Both of those wonderful players allowed this to happen, and we're so grateful for them. And one of the things that we gave a press release, a joint press release, and we did it with Cassandra. And so this is public information that we are committed over the next 3 years to release 10 Atari recharged arcade cabinets. So it's going to happen. Mark my words, it's going to happen. And who knows what they look like, and maybe they'll be cockpits, maybe they'll be environmentals, maybe they'll have their own unique designs. Some will have trackballs, some will have flight sticks, some will have buttons like the original Asteroids did. See, zoom in on that Asteroids, guys. This is part of the fun of Asteroids. You got to use buttons only. It's how it works. It's just how it works. So we're never going to make a game that doesn't feel, and you can't do this on a console joypad. You go left and right, just like how it was designed by Ed Long, and then you have the hyperspace down below. Of course, they light up and they'll use LEDs and they'll flash, and a little bit different to tell you what to push at what times. But a modern version on an old classic that makes it even more fun that's never been done before. It does feel different when you play it in a cabinet the way it was meant to be played. It does feel better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, with that, I mean, I can't, my personal favorite, and look, I worked on all of them. So it's, do I look at the approach of choosing my favorite children? No, because I do have a favorite, and it's Gravatar. So I'll be waiting for that one. Cool. Well, thanks for the tour. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. Is there any closing things that we did not talk about that you want to talk about or mention? I feel like you've mentioned everything in addition to things that may or may not have been said, but who cares? Here it is. It's out there in the world. So deal with it, Cassandra, again. So anything else that you wanted to talk about or whatever you want, floor is yours when talking about this. Then we'll get to the ending segment.
Let me just say how much we love Atari and what it stands for, and what the brand means to so many people. And we will not let it down. Our partnership, we hope it lasts for decades to come. We hope that we can build hundreds of cabinets a day coming off of our factory floor. We actually own another building right next door that's 22,000 square feet. This is 6,000 square feet. It's full of classic arcade cabinets, over 600 arcades, 700 arcade cabinets from the 70s and 80s. And another day, maybe on another podcast, Jason, we can do a walkthrough, and we can see all the old classic games that Atari made back in the day, from Video Pinball to Super Breakout.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do that closer to the release when we got another bump. Yeah, let's do that in a few months. Absolutely. That sounds awesome.
Our hope is that we can recreate and capture the magic, and we will do all we can to bring these to arcades near you. So a lot of fun. And of course, it only works if people go put quarters in it. So keep putting them in. We love it. We love Atari. Long live Atari.
Yeah, we love you too. This is great. Well, I always like to end these podcasts by talking a little bit about what we're playing outside of our day jobs and what we're playing during the day. So obviously you've been playing a lot of Atari Recharge during the day, but what about when you get home? Brad, JK, you're here, so you can get in on this as well.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? What are you guys playing?
Ooh, I'm a super nerd, and I love Banner Lords.
Okay.
Mountain Blade 2. Yeah, it's basically a medieval simulation. It's great. Yeah. I'm a total medieval nerd. I love that stuff. So I do play that often. So that's mine. Yeah.
That's awesome. Great. JK, how about yourself?
Oh, that one was JK.
Oh, that was JK. Sorry, Brad. There you go. Sorry about that. Keeping that in as well.
Man.
Tilt that sideways 90 degrees.
That's right.
Other way.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Other way.
He's upside down now.
Other way. Tilted the other way. He's upside down.
There you go.
Okay.
There we go.
All set there.
Oh man, Jason, this may come as a surprise to you, but I am not a big gamer. So, when I get home,
I don't know. You were killing it on that machine.
I know. Yeah, I share too much. But yeah, no games for me recently.
All right, all good.
Brad's got 4 little kids, and he's that's his game for sure. But his son loves Avian Nights. He plays Avian Nights all the time, and it's a lot of fun.
Love that. All right, I'll take it.
I love the VCS. My kids make fun of me that I got 6 kids and we'd love it, but I love the VCS. I play anything on the VCS all the time. I go after the high scores. Shout out to Retro Man and Driller Joe and all my friends out there in the community. And I'm gunning for your high scores. But I love to play Age of Empires. Last night I was playing it with my 2 sons. That's a fun game. It's just something fun about throwing spears and running horses. It's just a lot of fun. So real-time strategy is probably my favorite when it's not arcade games and arcade cabinets in the Atari VCS.
Awesome. Cool. And I guess I'll wrap up.
How about yours?
I'll go into I finished this a couple weeks back and I really liked it. Devolver Digital, they put out amid all the rap battle beef that's going on, Devolver put out a post that's like, yeah, any indie publishers want to start some beef with us, I want to do the opposite, and I want to throw some love to Devolver because I recently played through Pepper Grinder and I absolutely loved it. It is an indie game. It's like an indie platformer. You find this drill, and all the puzzles are based around like drilling down into various surfaces and platforming. And there's some combat. There's some really tough boss fights in there. It is just awesome. In an age where I put like 65, 70 hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And there's all these enormous games. It's nice to have like a really tight sub 5 hour game that you could just blast through over a weekend and just have a fun time, respects your time, and you just go through in, you're out, and you're like, man, that was an awesome experience. It's really fantastic. So if you like that quick arcade platforming gameplay, then that's something a little bit different. What the hell is the name of it? The thing is, it's called Pepper Grinder. I keep wanting to call it Drill Dozer, which is definitely not what it is. That was a game on the Game Boy Advance that had a rumble pack, and you played as a robot with pink hair. That game was amazing. This is very different. It's more fast paced. It's a lot of fun. So Pepper Grinder, I played that on Switch, but it's on most platforms, I believe. Sorry, I don't think it's on VCS, but I do highly recommend Pepper Grinder. And with that, gentlemen, we are at the end. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Before I do the whole sign-off thing, I always like to ask people where or if people can or should find you on the social media. Where should people go? What do they want to do? James, your show. What do you say?
Yeah, JK, why don't you tell us that? I'll follow up and finish off.
Yeah. So we have a bunch of social media outlets. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. And then we also have a Twitter as well. The biggest access you'll probably have is to our website, Alan1.com. And it's Alan-1, the number. And then that'll bring you to a lot of what we're doing. You'll see a lot of the projects that we work on, and really where we're most of our information is there in Facebook, I would say. So if you find us on Facebook, we're Alan-1 on Facebook as well. Yeah.
Great. All those links will be down below in the description or in the description on the podcast feeds as well. So
Thanks,
check those
Jason.
out. What about personal? Any personal feeds you want to plug?
Yeah,
Anybody
sure.
posting any crazy stuff on Twitter these days?
Oh no,
Weighing in on the rap battles.
No, Colin's our wonderful member of our team, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff. But nothing personal for me. But
All
you
right.
can, if you want to shoot us an email, you can. And my personal email is james@alan-1.com. If you want to talk to Brad at alan1.com. And JK, I think yours is James Knight at alan-1.com. So happy to serve you. I'm happy to help you any way we possibly can. All ideas, any good suggestions or solutions to anything that's been out there. I know enough to know how much I don't know. And I know that building something good takes everybody's input. And so if you want to help us make all these recharge games work better on an arcade cabinet and work great, please, this is our invitation. Shoot us a note. We're happy to hear your feedback.
You've just opened up some potentially deadly floodgates, but I'll let you suffer those consequences. That's a problem for future you.
Yeah, we've already gotten a lot of feedback as we've been working, and we get a lot of those messages that come our way through DMs for sure. So,
yeah. All right, cool. All right. Lastly, again, a reminder from the beginning: you should join the Discord. Links below. Follow. Subscribe, review, all those things. Share it online, or just chainmails. We should probably bring back chainmail, right?
That works.
Speaking of James Knight. Hey, see what I did there? You can follow me and make fun of my terrible dad joke at Jays of Doom on Twitter.
Dad joke. Love it.
And yeah, look, it was awesome. This opportunity to talk to these guys came up, and I was like, yeah, this would be great. And if you have any ideas for the podcast, you can tweet at me. Please let me know, or leave them in the comment section below at YouTube. I do read all the comments, by the way, good and bad. So be honest. That's all I ask. Honest. Give the thumbs up, then leave an honest opinion. That's what I ask. And yeah, I am trying to work out some other stuff with the podcast as well, to do some cool, interesting things in the future. So be on the lookout for that. And that's it. We're done. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. This looks great, and I really can't wait to get my hands on it. So thanks again. And for everybody else,
Thanks, Jason. Thanks so much.
We'll see you on the next one.
Jason.
Bye.